Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I like to discuss how, as the main political parties are setting out their stalls for the general election, the Conservative parties within a party are gearing up not for the election but for the aftermath, where each faction wants to take over, all in the name of rescuing the Conservatives. The latest is that Liz Truss has now created a name for her group. I used to refer to these as the low tax Tories. They didn't have a formal group. My betting was going to be on something like the anti-woke bunny boilers. But no, apparently they've gone with the title Popular Conservatism. Yeah, that's what I thought as well. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So I've said before that there are multiple factions within the Conservative Party who see benefit in losing the election. And as all of these factions are on the far right, it's also in their interest to lose quite heavily. So we have the news again this week that Danny Kruger of the New Conservatives is saying that the party's left the country worse off than when it started, which is true. And not just my biased opinion, any data you'd care to present will back that view up. As far as I'm aware, there is not a single metric of government performance that can be presented which would show improvement in anything since 2010. You get that a government has priorities, and therefore some of the things not on that list of priorities can be neglected, but it is quite impressive to have made literally everything worse. The One Nation Conservatives, they're sort of the centre-right, they refute this assessment and claim to have a lot of achievements under their belt, though interestingly they don't mention Brexit. But none of their claims can be backed up with data, simply rhetoric. But never mind that, the One Nation Conservatives are not in this fight just yet. They're probably happier with the leadership now than they've been for a while, but it's still not their leadership, and they know it's on its way out. Those fighting hardest for the future are the far-right factions. Danny Kruger of the New Conservatives is arguing that the rise of the far-right around the world is a warning to his party, and that the solution, if we're going to avoid going down the far-right path, is to adopt far-right policies. And if you think that's baffling, just wait until you get a load of Liz Truss's new wheeze. So according to the Express this week, she appears to be formalising her group. Like, as I said, in the past, I've just called them the low tax Tories because they didn't really have a name. According to the article, they do now. The Popular Conservatism group. Now, there's something about many of these groups on the extremes of politics which is just fundamentally dishonest to the point where you think to yourself, they know they're being dishonest, don't they? Like, we've had the European Research Group. They hate Europe and have never done anything which comes close to research. These days, they're not even a group because most of their membership ignores their official leadership. You have the New Conservatives who claim we need to return to conservative values. But the conservative values they talk about have no basis in the history of their party. For example, they talk about anti-immigration policies. Now, the Conservatives have used anti-immigration rhetoric in the past, but until recently, when have they ever adopted anti-immigration policies, really? Performative cruelty every now and then, yes, but when have they ever adopted policies that reduce immigration? They don't. They increase immigration. It wasn't even the Conservative Party who introduced passports 100 years ago. They're a pro-immigration party who, in recent decades, have used immigration rhetoric to distract from their own greed and incompetence. As for calling themselves the New Conservatives, that's the furthest thing from a claim that you want to return to any sort of roots. Like, Blair didn't pretend that New Labour was a return to anything. He used the name as like a modernising device. Then Liz Truss's Popular Conservatism. Now, it's a group which apparently includes Jacob Rees-Mogg. I mean, where do I start? First of all, so let's say there can be people who genuinely believe in Liz Truss's ideas, right? Okay, the fact that they've been debunked obviously doesn't concern them. So let's say you've got someone who likes Liz Truss's ideas. Oh yeah, I think that would work. Unless your head is in the sand, it's not possible to believe that it's either popular or that it represents conservatism. Like, I know that were I to work my will and decide how this country was built up, how the society was controlled and all the rest of it, if I were to present my ideas to the people, I know that there wouldn't be general approval. I know that I'm well out of kilter with normal public beliefs. But So you can be aware, you can be out of kilter with the public and be aware of that. Truss and her crew simply aren't, are they? They're not popular. Liz Truss and her economic ideas are deeply unpopular in the UK right now. That is a fact, backed up by any measure of public opinion that's been taken over the last year or so. As for conservatism, there's nothing less conservative than actually wanting to rip up the status quo and start again. Conservatism is about maintaining the status quo. Technically, as far as that part is concerned, the status quo as it was in the early to mid 19th century. Liz Truss is a revolutionary. She's not a conservative. And according to the Express, Truss also claims that this group will be how she saves the Conservative Party from Nigel Farage. What's a Nigel Farage is her enemy now? Is this the Nigel Farage who turned up to the Conservative Party conference to attend her speech? That Nigel Farage? Apparently the group is to urge Sunak to present policies which appeal to traditional Tory voters. Now, out of context, you go, that sounds like sensible advice. The Conservatives have been losing chunks of their core support for years now. This didn't start with Rishi Sunak. It started with Boris Johnson. Remember the by-election in a safe Tory seat he lost in 2021, Chesham and Amersham? This was, you know, the vaccine bounce was still sort of in effect. It was sort of tailing off a little bit. It was before the Owen Paterson scandal. It was just before the water pollution scandals really blew up. It was certainly before Partygate. Boris Johnson lost that by-election. It was nothing to do with scandals. There were no scandals at the time. It was purely because his policies were at odds with traditional Conservative voters. So, of course, having an influential Conservative backbencher call for policies which reconnect with those voters, you'd go, well, there's nothing remarkable about that. That makes sense. But that's not what she actually wants. She wants extreme policies. She wants policies which appeal to only a small section of people and to pretend that they would appeal to traditional Tory voters. It's like you put the biggest lie in the title of the book, isn't it, type thing. Popular conservatism. It's neither popular nor conservatism, but you put it in the title so you can say, oh, you're not popular conservatism. Yes, we are. It's our name, you see. She wants to fight a war on taxes and woke. But people understand that taxation is an important part of life, even though there can be disagreements on how exactly it's done. And this war on woke is just childish fabrication. It doesn't engage people who don't want to live their lives focusing on politics all the time. And for those who do want to live their lives focusing on politics all the time, it's already done its job. It's to either appeal or repel them. You know, what we have in the Conservative Party is this mad situation where nobody wants to admit being on the far right. None of these far-right groups say they're on the far right. So the various far-right factions all pretend they're centre-right. They pretend they're in tune with the public, which means they have to denounce the actual centre-right of their party as socialists. Because it's obvious they're further to the right than the One Nation Conservatives. So if they're centre-right, what must the One Nation Conservatives be? Oh, they must be Marxists. This in turn feeds into the Reform UK narrative about Labour and the Conservatives both being socialist parties, which then helps steer voters on the far right away from the Tories to Reform UK. It's like the most insane state of affairs. In order to try and rescue their party from Nigel Farage and Reform UK, the Tories are actually delivering their own voters to them. They're making Reform UK look like a better bet for the vote of these people on the far right. Except, although it's an insane state of affairs for the Conservative Party, it's not an insane strategy from these groups. Because these groups are not Conservatives in the sense in which the general public see them. They're entryists who've succeeded in taking over their party. Yes, they're not best pleased with Sunak as leader now, but it's not like he's been able to properly face them down. And they know that as soon as the election's over, there's going to be a battle between those saying it was because they were too extreme and those saying it's because they weren't extreme enough. Zero risk of Sunak wing clipping their leaders by denying them candidacy for the election. And if the party does really badly, it is those arguing that they weren't extreme enough who will win, because it's believed that more of the far-right loonies are in the very safest seats. So if you whittle away all the vulnerable seats, all you've got left are the loonies. You know, the members will certainly want an extreme solution to the extreme problem of a proper hammering in the election. So you have this situation where the far right, although it will mean losing a lot of their colleagues, the far right benefit from the Tories being properly crushed in this election. The major problem for the far right is not that they will find it hard to persuade the party members to support a bus ticket on the road to oblivion, but that they're all going to end up attacking one another. See, right now, their common enemy is Sunak. It's not Starmer or Labour, and they're paying almost no attention to the Lib Dems. Like I say, if they see losing the election as the only way to truly take over the party, they want to lose the election. Sunak is their enemy. Once he's gone, a new leader and a new direction is needed. And they all want that leader to be from their camp, and they want that direction to be their doctrine. The question really will be, which group will emerge as the big beast after the election? And it might well be Truss's popular Conservatism group. The new Conservatives, if you look at their membership, it tends to be full of MPs whose chances are a little bit slim for the election, shall we say. Truss's group will also experience a bit of a culling. Simon Clarke's going to be gone. Jacob Rees-Mogg could easily be gone as well. But there will be some left, including Truss herself, notwithstanding the video I did earlier this week that points at a possible challenge to her that might actually see her losing a seat. But on the balance of probability, she'll probably retain the seat. Will this new popular Conservatism group take centre stage in the Tory party after the election in the same way that the ERG did for several years? They may well do, if the election results go their way. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.